Perfect. Okay, we are ready to start. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Beth Notch. Thank you, alumni, for coming. I'm just going to do a quick plug for the XPD, Experience in Professional Development. Thank you for joining in this Careers in Business panel. This is one of 18 career panels we're doing across both campuses today, so it's a big event. And also to students, please ask questions. These alumni are here to share their experience, their wealth of information with you. And I will just put a plug in for pay attention to announcements from our offices, come use our services and our resources. This is just one example of the programming that we put on. And I would like to introduce Julie Fisk, and she will run the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Hello to our panelists. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you. I don't even know where I'm looking. There I am. A huge thank you for being with us today, for taking time out of your very busy schedules, for paying it forward, and for investing in our students. We really, really appreciate you and all that you're doing for us. I want to say thank you to Beth and the XPO office and all of the work that they're doing to provide professional development opportunities for you guys. And I want to thank all of you for taking some time to invest in yourselves. This is the other side of your academics, and it's really important to make connections. And just every chance you get to do some professional development, I highly encourage it. So with that, we're going to get started. And so I would like to ask our panelists, and I don't know, Beth, if maybe you want to read off names or if you want me to do it, I don't know. But what I'm going to be asking for just like an introduction is your name, your college major minor, and then your current position. So your role, responsibilities, benefits, and challenges. And I wanted to say to our students, we have supply chain, marketing, HR, and more on our panel. So really covers all of what we do in GBUS. Look at the right spot. Want to do it or do you want to? Okay, so I'm just going to randomly call on each of you. So just based on who I'm seeing, Beth, would you mind introducing yourself for us today?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Nafziger. I graduated from St. Ben's and St. John's with a business management degree. I also, though, then went to St. Thomas to get my master's. So, you know, there's that. But I currently am the senior marketing manager at an organization called SunOpta. SunOpta is a sustainable company that produces plant-based milks and fruit, and I run the fruit side of the business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth, for joining us. Annie, would you introduce yourself for us?
Yes, good morning. I'm Annie Knoll. I graduated in 2017 with a global business leadership major. I think I was one of the first, maybe the second or third class with that title. I have a finance minor and entrepreneurship concentration. And post-college, I went on to work at Securian Financial for 5 years. And there I served in a variety of roles, but mainly in sales and client relationship. And then most recently, just in late September here, have made a bit of a career change and joined the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And I'm working on more of a technical side now. So helping facilitate the giving process and looking for efficiencies in our current technology setup.
Congratulations, Annie, on your new role. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Omar, would you please introduce yourself for us?
Yes, hello everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. My name is Omar Sharif. I graduated in 2010 with a business degree in management. Right out of college, I started I work at a company called Countrywide Time Rubber, doing distribution operation for about 8 years. And 2 years ago, I started my own company called Renegade Racking. We specialize in industrial shelving for all the warehouses are going around the city, so and around the country.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Ryan, would you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Damlow. I am currently the Foundation Director for Tri-County Healthcare up in Wadena. I graduated from St. John's back in 2004. with a management degree. And so when I look back at my career path, I worked in some of the world's biggest companies, and now I'm in a small nonprofit hospital system. And so my job really is I'm the chief fundraiser. We're building a $72 million campus right now. And so I went out and I got about $3 million worth of funds from grants and some of our community donors. And I'm also now in charge of all of our redesign and redevelopment of our current campus, as well as expanding to find new partners for our current 76-acre campus as well. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for joining us. And then Augustine, and please forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Would you please introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, my name is Augustine. I graduated 2015 with a degree in psychology. It's a little different from some of the other people. Currently work for Lifetime Fitness. So it's a big gym chain, very big in Minnesota and some other states. This is my second company after college, and my third role at this company.
Wonderful. And then I'm going to just start sort of randomly and ask some of the questions that we've sent to all of you. I'm wondering what your key experiences were during college, and which experiences would you recommend students consider in order to position themselves for working in the field? So we're talking about clubs, organizations, arts, athletics, volunteer experiences, summer jobs, on-campus positions, study abroad, internships, undergrad research, mentoring relationships, and the like. Augustine, would you start us out?
Yeah, so I was in the clubs that were beneficial to my role now. My senior year, a group of students started an HR club. I'm not sure if that's still active. It was the first year we did it. And so that really helped me. We did a lot of networking, reaching out to a bunch of different alumni who came in and spoke to us. It was good to get an idea of what people do in their jobs, similar to kind of like this panel, because I studied psychology. I knew I wanted to go to HR, but HR is a really broad field. So that club was very beneficial, connected with a couple other, business professors who weren't actually my professors because I didn't study business. So really interesting to just network in there. I used I don't know if it was called XPO, but the career office a lot, connected with a bunch of different alumni throughout my 4 years there, mainly the last 2 years. Did a couple of internships towards the end of junior, senior year. I did a nonprofit unpaid volunteer internship because that was really all I could find or was able to get, going into senior year. But once I finished that, it really helped me get other internships. So I was able to land an internship my second semester of senior year, which I was able to take for credits and get paid. So it was a win-win for me. But the reason, they told me that they selected me was because I had a previous internship before, even though it wasn't paid. So I think that really, I don't know how the internships are looking now, but I didn't want to take an unpaid one, but it was what I got, and it helped me transition to my second role. Other things I did in college would have been I studied abroad. That was super beneficial for me. I studied abroad in Chile. I think in my job, I deal with a lot of different people around the US and Canada. Lifetime has 30,000 employees, so I'm interacting with any issues around the country and just learning different people's background and their ideas and how they operate life. That really helped, and I think getting to know a lot of different people at St. John, St. Ben's from different cultural backgrounds, different states, that really helped me understand the dynamic of how people operate and work in different states.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Omar, what would you have to say? You are specifically coming from the supply chain side. Did you have any key experiences that were helpful, or things now when you look back in retrospect, you would recommend to somebody who was interested in the supply chain? Sure.
Yeah, my experience at St. John was awesome. In some of leadership roles, I was part of the Nordic ski team. I think it's a club now. And I was a two-time captain of that team while there. I also was part of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee for 2 years as well, and was the treasurer of that in 2010, my senior year. And we also started the cycling club. And so I was a treasurer and vice president of that for a year as well. So I was, spent a lot of time with the clubs as well. But also dabble in accounting while there before I switched major to management. So I think that was a little bit of help in my career later on. But right after college, I got a unpaid internship up in a ski company called Solomon. So some of you guys who are downhill skier or snowboarder are probably familiar with the company out in Utah to kind of help me finish my degree because an internship was required back then. I'm sure it still is today. So right after that, I worked for a company called Gear West. It's a very small kind of a niche cross-country ski shop out in Long Lake for about a year. Just didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point, but needed a job to just kind of figure it out. So I worked there for a year, got to experience marketing and event planning for a year. And then from there, I moved on to a company called Countrywide Tire and Rubber, as I said earlier. And they specialize in importing specialty tires, ATV tires, lawn and garden, kind of what I call non-sexy tires, not auto par. So we were kind of like on the background. So we, did private brand for places like Fleet Farm, some of those big retailers. I started in the logistics department. So I was in charge of importing the containers and material from overseas. So I got to learn how to do that from China, Korea, Indonesia. So we had a big presence in Asia. So that was, pretty cool, especially right out of college, learning about that part of logistics. And then from there, I moved on into what I call the middle of the operation, or the middle of the company as a distributor. I was in charge of inventory, getting the orders out to the customer. So that was kind of neat. So went from the front end of the business to kind of the middle end of the business, learned a lot there. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then towards the end of my time at Countrywide, I was in the project management position. I got to work with a lot of the leaders of the business, both on the financial side of it, but also on the operation and the logistics side of it, on different projects for the company. So from there, in 2020, I decided it was time for me to kind of try something on my own. I decided to kind of join what is called material handling industry. Again, around the warehouse industry. So keep going back to the non-sexy part of these industry, because I think it's easy for us to kind of focus on some of the big corporation where I think there's tremendous amount of opportunity in things that people don't see. These warehouses, as all of you guys know, when COVID hit, it was huge opportunity for distributors to kind of showcase what we can do where everyone needed things delivered to their houses. So we focus on outfitting warehouses in terms of efficiency, shelving space, mezzanine. So when you walk into a typical warehouse, there's all these, Costco, for example, you got these green and orange kind of rack in the background. So that's what we do. We sell those and install those. So we're pretty busy with a lot of opportunity in the warehousing industry. So I guess that's what I'm doing now.
Thank you. Part of what I hear you saying is that you had some leadership experience at college in a variety of clubs that really had nothing to do with supply chain, but then that helped you as you were getting into your first jobs and your internships. Would you say that's probably, did I summarize that okay?
Right. So looking at a different industry roles. So obviously when you're young with no job experience, people tend to lean on those leadership quality that you might have experienced in college. So, for those of you guys, if you ever get an opportunity to kind of take one of those roles, it might seem overwhelming at first with your class load, but it's, you get to learn a lot. You get to really meet a lot of people. And for me, meeting a lot of alumni of St. John, St. Ben's who were in the ski community definitely helped me get my internship at Solomon. So we had that connection. And when I moved on into the tire distribution company, again, it was another way to really kind of showcased my leadership in not only the logistics part of it, learning that, but also being able to sit in office with the CFOs or the leaders of the company. So I think that was a big help, you know, having the chance to kind of learn that at St. John's.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Annie, what about you? What key experiences did you have, or in retrospect, would highly recommend to our students here today?
Yeah, I definitely second leadership opportunities, either through clubs or on-campus jobs. I was fortunate to actually work at was then called the Career Services Offices, and was a great opportunity for me to lead a team of student employees. So that was it had a great safety net, taught me how to be a manager, and I don't know if I realized the impact that it had at the time, because it was just kind of the natural progression of on-campus jobs. But that is something, as I reflect on now, was tremendous for my development. So definitely second leadership opportunities, but more importantly, just get involved in anything and everything. I definitely miss how many opportunities there were at our fingertips as students, from speakers to volunteers opportunities to honestly, like speakers in class. Just there's so much at your fingertips, and I know it can feel like you're stressed and there's a lot to do on your plate, but make time for those extracurriculars, because post graduation they maybe don't disappear, but you have to seek them out, and it's a lot harder when they're not putting posters in front of you constantly or sending out emails. So take advantage of all the different opportunities on campus.
So what I'm hearing you say, Annie, is network, network, network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan, what would you have for us? Anything, any key experiences during college or things you would highly recommend in retrospect?
Yeah, so when I was on campus all 4 years, I worked in the refectory. So I was pretty fortunate. I came in as a blue crew and went right to a supervisor, one of the red shirts, by the end of my freshman year. And then I was the assistant manager and student manager of those of the refectory then by the time I was a senior. So again, you talk about those little bit of leadership experiences, but then also never forget to be a servant leader. I still to this day will hop into my kitchen at the hospital and go run dishes if I need to, or I will go out and help facilities with projects they have. It doesn't matter your role or your title. Just always remember that your team depends on you. And so if you have those skill sets, please help when you can. That's one of the biggest things I took away from those 4 years, especially working in the kitchen. Again, not a glamorous job, right? Being stuck in the dish room, it's not fun, but you can make it fun with the people you're working with. I was also part of track and field. So I played track and field all 4 years. I got to study abroad in Austria when I was a junior. Again, so some really great, just lifetime experiences. Again, those networks and those friends that you have. It's just amazing how many weddings that you get to be a part of and see their families grow and be there for the births of their friends, kids. It's amazing. So make sure you keep those alive and well as well. But the final thing I have really is kind of an outside, once you're graduated, again, I didn't probably do this enough when I was on campus. It was more of the requirements of, going and working in the Boys and Girls Club in St. Cloud was one of the requirements we had to have is to make sure we get some service hours in, a few other things. But now as I raise my 2 kids, I realize how important service work is. So I'm the president of our local Lions Club in Wadena. So, and by the way, Lions, Rotarians, JCs, join one of those groups. And so, but I will say that the Rotarians, in my opinion, are similar to like St. Thomas people. So join the Lions Club if you can. To me, there's a lot cooler crew. But so be involved, right? Whether it's a local library, board, or if it's a nonprofit board, you can be a part of those things, especially younger as you are, because to me, those experiences will help you. It's like in my role, I have a board that I have to report to every single quarter. And so sometimes those experiences of people that are on the outside looking in at what you do for your job every single day can be difficult if you don't understand where they're coming from. They always want to be a part of something greater in the community to really help make the communities that you live in a better place. So be involved with that. I'm lucky to be an elected school board official. Again, I'm the president of our Lions Club. I've sat on countless boards in our community. And so to me, those are the greatest ways to get involved. to be able to give back, especially when you live in a small town. I live, Wadena is only a town of 4,000 people, but in my job, it's so important because I serve about 40,000 people in our service area for our hospital. So again, not always just thinking about where you are, but how you can expand your reach out to other communities.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for specifically mentioning servant leaderhood or servant leadership. It's a key component of leadership, but then also getting involved in your community beyond college. I would agree with you. Some of those service clubs and organizations are a wonderful way to first give back and also make connections with others. Beth, how about you? Key experiences during college, what would you tell people to make sure they participate in?
Absolutely. So two things really stand out. One, I did do a study abroad. Now, it still haunts me. I just did a J-term study abroad. I went to London and that was amazing. But if you have the opportunity to go abroad, don't give any excuse of why you can't. There's ways around it financially with help. There is always time for everything else you're doing. Going abroad is so important for the connections you make, the experiences you see. And as someone who hires a lot of people out of college and a lot of interns, I flag that. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. The other things I did is I had a lot of jobs. Now, my number one job was, of course, going to school, but I had summer jobs. I had part-time jobs. I also volunteered. So kind of the theme of what everybody is saying is just get as many experiences as you can because you have the time to explore and kind of see what you want to do. I worked in the service industry during college. That I think is really key. And I look at that when I look at people's applications and their resumes as well is, okay, they can handle a lot of stuff. A lot of what I do in my job today is negotiation, influencing people. So anything you can do, like any mock interviews, any panels you can be on, any experiences that you have to help your voice, that's really, I wish I would have done a lot more of that. I did participate in a lot of the career services opportunities that we had, including the mock interviews. Internships. So I had an internship in college, one, because it was required, but two, it was really, I wouldn't have gotten my first job out of college. I worked in event management right out of college at a company called Musicland, and which was bought by Best Buy. And there's actually quite a few Johnny's and Benny's there, which was really fun. I also would encourage you to seek out the organizations that you want to get a job at after college. See if they have Johnny and Benny, they have clubs within. I know Best Buy does. I think Target does, to find alumni that are in roles and companies that you think are interesting, having those conversations. If there's anybody on campus, take advantage of it, get in front of them. But again, that internship. I already just hired an intern for next summer. So if you're not already thinking about what internships you're doing, I encourage you to go to the career services office and think about what you can do for next summer, because some of the cool internships are the ones that some of the companies that might be more unique, who have, more of a structured program, or might be already gone. Encourage, if you think there's a company that you want to work at, again, and they don't have an internship program, send them a proposition of what you could do for that company. I just think that that's really crucial. And that internship that I had during college was really helpful. And the jobs that I had during college were really helpful. I know if you're doing sports, that might be hard, but when it's over, jobs is what I'm looking at and how I'm seeing when I'm hiring that person's pretty well-rounded and that they're going to be okay coming in first thing when they have to start and they're really green.
Thank you, Beth. First of all, I want to say thank you for that really solid advice on internships. Looking early is fantastic advice, but then also thank you for just affirming, all of our first jobs sometimes are not glamorous and not in places that we're going to end up, but you get some really important skills from those very first jobs. And so that is an experience that you are investing in even as you're making some money. So just a great reminder.
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask next is strategies. Let's talk about strategies. So we have people here from supply chain and marketing and HR, and who have backgrounds in all sorts of other things. What do you think is, let's start with one key strategy for successfully pursuing a career in your area of business and where you're sort of headed, or in one of the places that you were? What was a key strategy for you? And let's see, let's start with Ryan.
So for me, the biggest thing is working in a nonprofit, again, sometimes isn't always glamorous, especially if you think of the really, really small nonprofits that are just trying to keep their lights on, right? I think of our local food shelves and the humane societies. Those things are really small. But for me, I'm fortunate to work in a larger nonprofit. And so they still pay great salaries. They still pay some great wages, great place to work. But the thing to me that is the most important when you're looking for a job in the nonprofit segment is, what are their mission? What are their values? What are those key things that make you want to go work for them? Because if you look at things that, again, if it's just a job, it's a job, that's fine. But as you get ready to set into your career for later down the road, to me, it's all about those mission, vision, and values. And I was a part of our team that was able to go through and redesign ours for our hospital system within the last 3 years. So to me, it really speaks even more volume about what the direction is of our team and within our facility, and for all of our patients and our staff.
I love that. So passion. So when if you're looking into the nonprofit world, making sure that what organization you're joining lines up with passions that you have as well. Annie, how about you?
Yeah, Ryan kind of touched on this, but I think it's really important when thinking about a job. You've similarly have been in a position where you had to select a college, right? So in order to select St. Ben's, St. John's, you went through the process in your mind to determine what was important to you. Maybe it was community or location or alumni network, and those are the things that were highlighted to you that made you select St. Ben's and St. John's. And I encourage you to do the same thing when you think about a career or a specific job. Write down what's important to you. So for me, when choosing Securian, I wanted a place with growth opportunity. I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I knew I wanted finance because that was similar or familiar to me, but I didn't know what the day-to-day jobs were. So they had a rotational job where we got to spend the first year learning different positions. So that was really important to me. And leaders, I wanted to be able to be in touch with my manager. I wanted to know the CEO personally. So I wanted that small feel. So just like I did with college, I did the same thing with the company and highlighted those important values to me and asked them directly, tell me about working at Securian. How might I interact with my manager? Or tell me about the types of people that work here. And so directly ask those questions. And I think it's important to also caveat that your values will change, right? So early on in my career, those learning opportunities were really important for me. Once I was a few years in and I understood, okay, here's an area I wanted to be in or explore further, I directly asked my manager to say, here's my dream goal. Here's my next step I want to take. How can you help me get me there? And what experiences can I take on to better my opportunities in that field? So although it's not specific to maybe a supply chain or nonprofit, I think that skill of identifying what you're looking for is applicable to all.
Thank you, Annie. And excuse me, I would agree with you. In fact, there's some assessments available, like Strengths Finders and some other assessments that you have access to, and they are free, I believe, to you, which is an incredible value. So identifying things that you love, but also sometimes identifying things that you don't love. It's really, really helpful when being strategic.
I know Beth touched on this too, that your first job isn't always your most favorite, but I think it's even more important to learn what you don't like than what you do like in your first job, because that is even more helpful than maybe the gold star that you're chasing after.
Thank you, Annie. Omar, what would you say for us? You've done all sorts of different things in supply chain, and you talked about it being maybe some of the less glamorous but very profitable pieces of it. Do you have a strategy for our students to consider when they're thinking of a supply chain or logistics career?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on what Beth said earlier about creating your own internship. I had to do that with Solomon because we didn't have an internship, and I was a ski nerd and I wanted to work for them. And obviously I needed an internship to graduate. So I lean on my connections there to kind of create something and brought that to school. So anybody who's thinking about that, it's definitely a possibility. So definitely go for it because it can be a big reward later on. So I thought I wanted to be in that industry, but with the internship, it helped me figure out, okay, maybe this is not what I wanted to be. So I just wanted to kind of add to that. So my strategy has always been, I always wanted to have my own company one day. So that's always been in the focus. So logistics and was just an area that I just kind of landed after college. So my strategy was I needed to find a company that was small because I like the community aspect that I learned at St. John instead of a big corporation. So we had a lot of friends who went to work with Target, Best Buy, all of those things. Nothing against them, it just weren't for me. And I wanted it to kind of get close to somebody that I can learn from, not just the logistics side of it, but the leadership side of the business. So when I found Countrywide, I had a great mentor, the current owner, and he was the president for 10 years while I was there. So I just kind of focused on what sort of meeting can I just invite myself, and just sit in and learn. We all have responsibility, but if there was any sort of open meeting, you won't believe how many times I just randomly invited myself to all these small meetings about finance, about HR, about purchasing, and just to learn, just because I knew those are the skill set that I will need to learn if I'm ever gonna build my own company one day, just because you needed to learn those things. And like Beth said earlier too, you need to learn about negotiating and people skills like that. Can't stress that enough. Like if you know how to deal with people and you can negotiate, you will literally be able to do anything. Because logistics and supply chain, it's not rocket science. I always tell people we're not doctors, we're not curing cancer, we're just moving product from one end to the other end of the country. So it's not that hard, but the complexity of people and negotiating and all those things is really what's gonna make you stand out. So just find somebody to learn those skill set, whatever your goal is, not necessarily about the industry. So the industry never really mattered to me. It's more learning how to build something. So I mean, I could literally be selling, I don't know, chicken. It doesn't matter. So right, like it just, to me, that never really mattered to me. So that was my strategy, and I sort of developed that over time. I didn't come with that strategy right out of college. It took me a while to kind of learn. So it probably took me 2 to 3 years. Once I kind of figured that out, I kind of leaned into that for the next 5 years, and it kind of helped me put myself in the position that I'm in today of founding a company 2 years ago.
Yeah, I love that, Omar, and you are certainly an initiative taker. Did people welcome you taking that initiative? I mean, that's one of the, I think maybe the fears somebody might be thinking in their mind is, goodness, if I approach a company and ask if they would maybe, that I'm passionate about their products or I want to learn more about it, about doing an internship with them, that they would reach out to me. Would you just recommend people taking that initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was part of who I was at St. John. We started the cycling club, so there was no cycling club back then. So taking the initiative of starting something that is not available, or chasing an internship at Solomon that wasn't available. And my actual very first job at Countrywide, the logistics department was a brand new department back then. So it's a small company. We had purchasing and logistics. That was the two offers that essentially I got. And we were like, we already have a purchasing department. We want to grow it. We don't have anybody in the logistics. It's going to be brand new. So, I was like, well, let me try logistics. Then I know at least if I screw that up, there's no, we can't say, oh, this is how we used to do it. So taking that chance of something new, something different, it's because you get to learn a lot. You just get put on the fast track and you might make a lot of mistakes, but the things that you learn from it, it's so valuable for what I wanted to do. So to me, that was important. And I know that's probably not for everybody, but take a chance. At 20 some, looking back, I wish I'd taken more chance, but you have so much life ahead of you that it really, at some point, it doesn't really matter. You can just screw it up a few times and still be okay. And I
Yes.
think we're really afraid of that at young age, or like because parents want to approve or whatever. Like we all have our reason for not taking the chance. So I think you just let that go and just take a chance. And at the end of the day, as long as you keep learning, you will be fine.
Bold, solid advice. Thanks, Omar. What about you, Beth?
Yeah, two things. One, as far as strategies are concerned, I think from a young age, even in high school, I asked a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions, ask good questions, not only because you're going to learn stuff, but it shows that you are like you're willing to learn. It shows that you've got initiative. It shows that you are interested in your brain's thinking. Because again, I'm going to always go back to this, and why you're at St. Ben's and St. John's is because you're getting a liberal arts education. You're there to learn how to think, and then then you're going to bring that into your field. So again, continuously ask good questions anytime you're around anyone. And kind of what Omar said too, get yourself in there. Like I still to this day will put myself in meetings that I don't really need to be in. It's not my department, but if I end up in there, I'm going to sit and listen because I want to have an overall knowledge about this business, because someday I want to lead it. So I need to know everything about it. And that kind of comes into my second thing about marketing, that a lot of times I'll work with, students, and they say, well, I want to go into marketing. I want to do all of the creative stuff, or the arts and crafts department. Well, that's kind of on one spectrum. The other spectrum, which I'm at, is actually general management. So when you actually talk about supply chain, it's not that important. He is not giving enough credit to himself, because our supply chain is like the number one thing, because I work for a food company. We got to get food to point A to point B. And you'd think as a marketing person that you don't need to know about that. In my role as the marketing lead, I have to know about every single thing. I need to know what's going on in operations. I need to go know what's going on in the plant. I need to know what's going on in supply chain. I need to know, in my example, what's going on with fruit. And so, that marketing definition is really, really broad. It can mean working on a website or doing creative design, or it can mean like product development, which is really cool. It's so fun to go to Target and see a product that you worked on shelf. No matter what end of marketing you go into, a strategy that's super important right now for you guys, pay attention in your finance classes, pay attention in your econ classes. If you're on the art side or in psych or something, take a finance class. I'm still mad to this day because I didn't think investments really meant that much. And I had good grades in college, very good grades, until I took investments. And I thought, why would I need to know about this? I work for a publicly traded company right now. My entire job every week is reporting out on numbers, understanding where our numbers are at, understanding why investments are important. Why is it important that the stock market wants to invest in SunOpta? That is a day-to-day part of my job. So pay attention. This is my last advice. So classes you don't think are going to mean anything, but they do.
Well-rounded, right? Well-rounded,
Yeah,
which is why we have the curriculum set up the way we do. Okay, Augustine, you're up. What strategy? You're in the HR field. What strategy would you have for somebody who wants to pursue HR?
Yeah, so I think echoing what a lot of people said, so HR is a very broad field. We have recruiting, we have benefits, we have payroll, I work in the employee relations department. There's a whole lot of different aspects and departments within HR. I took that very entry level HR call center job, which a lot of larger companies have, where you just sit in a group of 5, 10, 15 people, and you answer basic questions amongst every little department. From there, my first job, I did ask a lot of questions. I networked within the company. I went to the specialist in the compensation, benefits, and payroll departments. I said, hey, why is this happening? Can I get more details? And they were always willing to have me shadow them for hours and ask questions, and gave me tasks that they didn't want to do so I could learn the experience. So that was really beneficial. Ultimately, my first job with a company got bought out, and we had like 6 months of kind of what's going to happen, what are we going to do, and everyone I had networked with and had worked with reached out and said, hey, I've landed this job, like we have a position for you. I think I had like 3 or 4 jobs that said, hey, we would love to have you over here, like I'll train you, like you're willing to learn, you're willing to ask questions, like I need somebody like that. I had one at Best Buy, I had one at Starkey, and I had one at Lifetime, all people who weren't my direct managers, but people who I'd partnered with. And they said, hey, I've worked with you a little bit, or I know the people you worked with and they said good things about you. If you want to come work for us, like, here's the opportunity we have. And, you know, I chose and I went through with Lifetime. And to this day, you know, I started at a, you know, the lead of the call center, and I worked my way up to the manager. And now I'm in the employee relations division, and I still connect with other divisions, like our benefits side, the recruiting side, and I partner with them and said, hey, like, what are we doing here? How can we partner together? And that's always, I think, what's been beneficial for me. Just going outside of your bubble, like even asking those little questions, that's going to help. You know, we talk about networking right now, like continue doing that after college, because people leave. People don't like to stay at their jobs all the time. And you know, I've had a couple of people reach out like, hey, are you interested in leaving Lifetime? Like, what if I, you know, got you a job over here? Would you be interested in, you know, leaving? And I have to contemplate those, you know, where I'm at in life. But I think that's always going to be beneficial. Networking now and networking and asking those questions once you're, you know, still have a job. Don't stop, because, you know, you don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm. Very solid advice. Thank you. So our professional reputations are incredibly important, but then making sure we know we're just introducing ourselves to people outside of your one small or large department. I'm going to pause just for a moment and open it up to questions in case anybody, there's been lots of really, really good conversation. Anybody have a question? Tatiana.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Caslow. I'm a senior GBUS major, and I have a few questions. You don't have to answer all of them, but for a senior graduating in December, what can I do in a month and a half to really stand out to a recruiter? And then second question, I know people often get discouraged when they don't have a job like right away after college. So for realistic perspective, how long did it take you all to receive a job offer after college? And lastly, what was your biggest challenge after graduation?
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to broaden it just a little bit and say, how long did it take you to get your first professional job after college? And we'll just do real short answers because we've got a couple of other questions in the audience. Is that okay with you, Tatiana?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long did it take you to get a professional job out of college? Let's see, Beth, you want to go first?
I can start, but I graduated in a year where jobs were flowing. And so I was late and I didn't have a job till the last week of graduation. That is not typical. I would say now you got to don't be discouraged. It's going to take a few months, and what you can do right now, polish your resume, polish your interview skills, and just start getting out there and start networking.
Thank you. Annie?
Well, my situation was a little bit different. I had securing an internship and accepted a job for graduation in September of my senior year. So highly encourage you to have the career conversations at the end of your internship, so it can relieve that pressure during your senior year. What I recommend in a month and a half, though, is if networking is something that maybe is a bit intimidating, I highly recommend this book called The 20-Minute Networking Meeting. It's a really quick read, and it gives examples of here's how to invite someone to network, here are the types of questions, how to structure your conversation. It's a really helpful tool to give you that confidence to have those networking conversations.
That is a great recommendation. I'm going to get that recommendation from you offline, and we can share it with everybody. Ryan, how about you? How long did it take you to get your first professional job?
Yeah, so I was fortunate. My mom and dad owned a family resort, and they were also moving into the housing industry as well. So I was pretty fortunate. I had a job kind of waiting for me, but I realized I didn't want to move back home at that point in my life. So I was like Beth. I all of a sudden went, oh well, jobs were plentiful, and I applied. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for about a year right out of college, and so I graduated on Sunday, May 8th, and then I moved to the cities on about the 11th. So I was working my new job by the end of the week after college. Again, not glamorous, but it was certainly a starter job.
Absolutely. Omar, how about you?
I had to do an internship right after graduation, and right after that, essentially, I was also lucky enough to work at that ski shop. It wasn't a career but it was just a job to just kind of keep myself busy until I figure out what I wanted to do. So I guess, if you don't consider that, I would say about a year to really figure out what I want to do and where I wanted to place myself. So, but
Perfect.
surely after.
Thank you. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time. Augustine.
Yeah, so I landed my job in March of senior year. I was applying to a lot of different jobs. I went to I don't know if it's still happening, a private school internship fair in the Twin Cities. I interviewed for quite a few positions there, and then I applied for other positions, but was able to get it in March, so a couple of months. Really excited to get it before, so I was less stressed. But the recommendation for everyone else is just network and don't give up. Had a lot of friends who, most of them had a job lined up towards the end, but there was a few who, didn't land a job until fall. They took, part-time, seasonal work, and then they got jobs and they're doing really successful. So I know it can be discouraging, getting the rejection emails, had plenty of those. But just keep applying, ask questions to the companies that you get rejected. They may not respond, but say, hey, can I get some feedback on what I could have done better or what you're looking for in a candidate. That may stick out to the recruiter, and who knows, maybe down the road they said, hey, we actually liked you, you reached out, you showed interest, let's reach out and offer a job to you. So that's just never give up and keep trying.
Perfect. Thank you. Tori, did you have a question?
Hi, I'm Tori. I'm a senior GBUS major. My question for you guys is, what's the biggest adjustment you had to make post-graduation as you were transitioning into a professional environment?
Okay, so our question is, what was one of the biggest adjustments you had to make post-graduation as you transitioned into a professional environment? Beth, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I have to say that if you're doing all the things, you're going to school, you've got jobs, one of the biggest things might be just the day-to-day of having to, if you have your traditional job that you get in at 8, you work till 5, just that not having that flexibility to do anything. I think it's just in schedule, just making sure you do the schedule. But if you are used to being really busy and having to be places at a time because of athletics or jobs or activities, I don't think it'll be that tough for you. Yeah, so it's time management is really all.
Okay, thank you. Annie?
My friends and I have talked a lot about this, and we all kind of hit what we call our quarter life crisis. I don't think it happened right away, but I wish we did talk about it as students, because it was about 2 to 3 years in where we're like, this is what the rest of our life working is like, right? There isn't a consistent season of change like you have with school. You're not automatically all moving to a new grade, or you're not having a 3-month break. Although I know summers are really busy, you have to create the change for yourself. And so I think being prepared that life goes fast because it stays the same, right? So I think the transition of realizing this is what you're going to do or working is what you're going to do for the rest of your life is maybe a pill to swallow. But once you get over the hump, I think it is very smooth.
Thank you. Let's see, Augustine.
One thing that I like to talk about is, I guess, the relationship you have with your friends in college. You have to make really an effort once you get a job. Once everyone has a strict schedule, people move far away, they move out of state. So just making sure you're maintaining contact, kind of going back to networking, just because they're friends doesn't mean you can't network with them. So maintaining contact with them, that's been a little difficult, just because you actually have to schedule things in advance, 2-3 weeks out, oh, what are you free? Let's hang out, let's grab dinner. So just maintaining that contact, that's been a little, at this point I'm used to it, but the first couple of years it was a little hard, just oh, I can't do it because I'm working or I'm here. So just maintaining contact with the people you've met in colleges can be a little difficult, but not difficult if you both put some effort into it.
Thank you. That is solid advice. Any other questions? Ezra.
How big of a role did location of the job play for you guys going to find those jobs?
Okay, so the question is, how big of a role was location when you were considering accepting a job? Is that an accurate So, how big of a deal was location when you were considering a job? And Omar, we didn't get to hear from you on the last one. So do you have any thoughts on this one?
For me, I guess it didn't play that big a role. I just knew I was gonna be in Minneapolis, wanted to be in Minneapolis. So my search was pretty focused on that. But I had a friend who wanted to go out of state and they were applying in different places. And some people also focus on the type of industry. If you wanted to be in tech or finance, you moved out to New York, or if you were in tech, you went to California. But I wanted to stay close to home. So I just kind of focused on that.
Thank you. Ryan, you're in Medina, small town, Minnesota. What about you? What do you think?
So I grew up in Parker Rapids, just 35 miles north of where I currently live now. So for me, it was about, again, the reason St. John's was so impactful for me was because of that small town feel, right? To not to go to St. Thomas or Hamlin or Augsburg, that was just too much for growing up in a town of 3,000. I just didn't like that. I loved the feel of St. John's, but when I graduated, I knew I didn't want to go home, right? So I didn't want to go back my hour and a half northwest. I wanted to go to the cities. So for me, it was very important to get away. And I lasted about a year before I decided to go back home. And now, again, I've moved all the way 35 miles south. None of my family lives in the state anymore. They've all moved out of state, but me and my family, we reside in Medina, and we absolutely love it. So now as an adult, like as a true adult, the job location makes so much difference. When I was working for Walmart for about 8 years, I had so many opportunities to travel and to take jobs in different parts of the country, but my wife was not willing to move our family away from her family with our kids. And so that was a very difficult conversation, just to look at job opportunities versus staying home. So if you're young and you guys want to make those choices, I recommend you do it before you get that lifelong partner, because those opportunities may not exist later down the road. They certainly do for some people, just not in the way that I've lived my life.
Things to consider. Any other questions?
Can I build on that?
Absolutely.
I'm from St. Cloud, and I knew that I was not going to even look at jobs anywhere in central Minnesota. I was getting the heck out. And I looked at Minneapolis, and I also looked at Chicago, but kind of what Ryan said is you can always come home. So many times I know people who came back to Minneapolis after having jobs away. I encourage you to look in other locations that might not be ideal, but I was offered relocation to go to a town in Georgia when I worked for a company called Rich Products. By that time I was married, I had a child. We were not moving to Southern Georgia. But if I would have gotten that opportunity at 23, there was a ton of younger people. It was really fun, but that would not be something now that I have kids, they're in school. It would have to be a pretty financial impact on our family to move at this point in time. So again, I wish that had I been given that advice to just go far. Like you thought at the time, Minneapolis might be far, look at other places.
And yeah, go ahead, Annie.
I was just going to add on too, this is a really interesting time to be applying for jobs because it's the first time that remote work is acceptable as well. So I just started a job with a company based in Seattle. So I'm one of the only teammates that aren't based in Seattle, and that didn't rule me out because I was in Minnesota. So don't let location be a deterrent.
Okay, Augustine, do you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I think it's kind of agreeing with what everyone else said. My partner had to do another year in college, so I didn't want to go too far. I did look at some jobs in Madison, but ultimately ended up landing the job in the Twin Cities. But I had a lot of friends who moved out of state, and a couple of them have returned, and a couple of them have moved even further. But it's really do it. I mean, if you consider looking at colleges outside of the Twin Cities, or I don't know if you are all from the Twin Cities or Minnesota, it's kind of the same aspect of that. Kind of think about, there's no right or wrong answer, but think about the pros and cons and evaluate what you think is going to be beneficial.
Yes, and we're gonna wrap it up because we're gonna be super respectful of our panelists' time, but then also of our students' time. Thank you so very much to our panelists for coming and taking time out of busy days, taking time out of all of your meetings and all of the other things that you have to have a conversation with us. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hold on for just a moment. I'm not entirely sure. Do you have anything to wrap up?
Excuse me.
Beth, you're in the room.
Beth in the room. Hello. Thanks again, panelists. And I was just gonna piggyback off of everything you said. The room, I didn't even do a check. I looked at the sign-in sheet. It's almost all juniors and seniors. So I know very much that internships, networking, and jobs are on your minds. Keep in touch with the programming. Make an appointment with myself or one of the career coaches if you want to come up with an individualized strategy for what you've got coming up. Okay, one more round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.